Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode here on the Do Something podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the different masks that we wear while surrounding ourselves by different people. So without further ado, walking through the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode here on the Do Something podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Alejandro Paredes.
And I'm Camden McFarland.
And on this episode, we're going to be starting off with a quote here by yours truly, Camden McFarland. So let's get right into it.
Yes, this quote was inspired by William James, and here it is. A boy has many selves, a man has one. So let me dive into what that means. I think what that means is basically the fact that we always aren't ourselves in situations. It depends on the situation how we act, and I think it takes some level of maturity to actually act who you are. Your actions represent who you are. So would you like to dive deeper?
Yeah, let's do it. I guess the first question I have for you is, what does it mean to be yourself?
I think this is a pretty tough question. I think to be myself is almost to not care as much what other people think about me, and live off my own goals, my own morals, my own drive, and not really have much outside social input into my life. I mean, it's good to have some input and some help, but at the same time, what I'm trying to say is you act like how you are, and you strive for your own goals for yourself, not for anyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, what it means to be myself is basically just not necessarily adjusting depending on the people who I am or who I'm around, but basically just being the same authentic self depending on the people I'm around. So, and just being true to myself. And of course that changes. Of course, when you're not going to act the same way in a job interview, the same way you're going to be talking to your friends. It's going to be a whole another environment, and therefore you show a different part of yourself. I think that's a good way to explain it. But I think your core, your fundamentals, your values don't shift depending on the people you're around. I think that's the most important thing about what being yourself and just being true to yourself. And yeah, like you mentioned, not being swayed by society and other things like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So for now, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think you are your genuine self in all situations?
I'm going to say I think for a majority of the time, I think I am my genuine self in most situations. I like to think that I think we're both the same person when we're filming this podcast, and we're also the same when we're not outside filming this. When we're not filming the podcast, I think you meet the same exact person, and I think that's something that came along the more I matured. Oh. I know, yeah, for sure. I know when I was younger, back in early high school or whatnot, it's you're always just trying to fit in, and you just want to find your place. And I think the easiest way to find that was just to follow the crowd or do what other people were doing to try to fit in. And so I think back when I was younger, I would definitely be different depending on the type of people I was with. But the more I matured, the more I figured out is like you mentioned earlier, it doesn't really matter what other people think. I should just be more concerned with myself and just staying true to myself and my values as well, and not adjusting to what other people think about me. And growing older and being more mature, I'm kind of to this point of I don't really care if you don't like me or if you don't like my personality. It's not because I don't want you to like me. It's just I'm not going to change or adapt to what you want me to be. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be myself and I don't really care. You either like it or not. That's the easiest way to say it. Mm-hmm. But that's not in a rude way. That's just me being 100% authentic with the people I'm surrounded with. So yeah, what about you? Do you think you are the most authentic version of yourself around the other people as well, or?
Yeah, I think overall I am, but I feel like I don't know if this is the same for you, but I definitely have my moments. I feel like
Yeah.
it because like I'm trying to think. There's not been too many social situations recently because of the situation and everything. But like on a small scale with like my roommates and stuff, I feel like occasionally I can kind of like not fully be who I am, like genuine in that moment. But I feel like the only time that really happens is like really quick decisions. It's not like I have a lot of time to be like, oh, I want to choose this decision because that best reflects me. It's more like really quick things that I'm like, that's not really what I meant, or like
Yeah.
that's not really what I want to be portrayed as, whatever. So I think like I still have my moments, but as you're saying, like for you, I feel like I also definitely matured a lot through high school and into college to the point where like I do understand what my genuine self is like,
Yeah.
and I can also I feel like I most aligned with my genuine self. I don't think I wouldn't say that like I'm fake. I would just say like sometimes like quick smaller decisions don't quite align with who I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something I need to work on.
And I think we all kind of struggle with that every so often.
I
I mean,
mean, it
it's
happens, you know.
there's I don't think I mean there might be people, but like I don't think everybody is 100% genuinely themselves. At I think it sometimes they might fall short, or just not be like you said. Is usually like in the moment decisions where you're like,
Yeah, quick
if I
things.
thought more about that, I probably wouldn't have done that. That's not
Mhm.
really me. That's not what I would necessarily do. I think it all just kind of depends on like the moment. And I can honestly say too, it's like I can't sit up here and say like, oh yeah, I'm 100% genuine everywhere I go. I mean, there's it depends like the amount of energy I have that day, or like
That's
how I'm
true.
feeling that day. Am I feeling social? Am I not feeling that social that day? It all kind of like depends, you know. So it's always changing, and I think it's
Yeah.
always a learning process as well.
Yeah, but I think like at our cores, I'm speaking for you now, I don't know.
No,
But
yeah,
at our cores, I feel like overall we kind of like our morals and our like values are pretty stuck to who we are. Like
yeah,
I feel like knowing you, I feel like we both are kind of have solidified that part of us, like that core.
yeah,
So it's I guess more easier to be genuine because we know that part of ourselves.
hmm
I think what's tough is like in high school, that part kind of hasn't fully developed yet. You
yeah.
don't
You don't
really
know who you
know
are.
your core, and
Yeah,
that's so tough because you also get all these influences from all these social groups and things. So it's so tough to find your core. And I think honestly, what it takes is just some like challenging experiences because I
I
feel
think
like
so. Yeah.
through like tough high school challenges, whatever it
I
is.
think like high school is really like the development phase of like you find out who you are, what you like, based on like the different groups that you associate, or like the different things you
Yeah.
try. You know, the people you surround yourself with, it kind of builds up your character. Starting, I'd say like in high school, probably like from that young adult life as well. And I think this
Yeah.
brings us pretty well into our next point that we wanted to discuss, which was basically what society says about being yourself. Usually, I think that society gives you a bunch of always tells you at a young age, it's like you have to stand out, you have to be different, you have to you don't be normal, like always be better in a way.
Mhm.
And I think by saying that, oftentimes it how I kind of see it is like in order to stand out, you got to blend in, if that makes sense. So in order to kind of fit in, you got to do what all the other people are doing as well. And that's kind of what I've seen, I guess, growing up. It was like if you want to be cool, quote unquote, it doesn't really mean anything. But like you gotta do what all the cool kids are doing or something like that. But what all the cool kids are isn't necessarily different. So that's doesn't make you stand out in any other way, other than I guess like your friends or whatnot, that little circle that you built. But I think that we're told to act a certain way, to like certain things, and to kind of be normal, quote unquote. When I think that's probably like the last thing we should like strive for. It's like we shouldn't strive to be normal. We should strive to be ourselves and do the things that we like. Be surrounded by the people that we actually enjoy and stuff like that. I think that's a big part about being ourselves and also being genuine with every person that you present yourself to.
Yeah, I also find it really important to like you were saying, be yourself and not necessarily like take in those societal pressures to be certain ways. And I think what's like a hidden gem of that people don't necessarily realize is that like a lot of people that have made big changes in history and in this life, those people are people that like have extreme drive and are themselves, because like
they aren't quote unquote normal.
Yeah,
either.
they aren't necessarily normal. Like, I don't know why this just popped into my head, but I don't know if you guys have seen the photo of Einstein.
Which
But
one?
he is-
There's a bunch
I mean,
of
there is a lot, but like I don't know. He just is making like a goofy face. I think sticking his tongue out or
that's
something.
the famous photo. Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like he was an interesting guy, but to say like that's just an example. But I feel like most people that change the world, do great things, are people that might initially seem kind of weird if you met them.
Yeah, like right off the bat, I can definitely agree with that. I think basically like the only people that like leaders, as to say, or anybody who's like made a difference in the world, you can't be like everybody else in a way, if that makes sense. Like you have to be different. You have to think different. You have to act different. You have to, because that's what pushes you forward.
Yeah.
That's what innovates, basically being different. Because if everything was the same, if everybody was the same, there would be no innovation. And I think that's what we see probably with like a bunch of celebrities, which are like now famous, or maybe even like business professionals, or how do you say, it's like CEOs. Let's take, for example, somebody like Elon Musk. If you saw him if you've read about him when he was a child, he was in school and he'd get bullied, and he'd get like people wouldn't treat him necessarily very nicely because he was a nerd, he was a geek, he loved computers, but that was true to himself. Like he loved computers, and so even when people were treating him unfairly or unjustly because of his passion of something he liked, he still stuck to it. He knew like kind of his core values and like what he wanted to do. He never really shifted to become normal or do things that other normal kids, I guess his age, were doing. He stuck to that, and like from that he was able to innovate so much. Like if you saw him, if you think about him now, you probably still think like, dang, he does some things I would definitely wouldn't be comfortable with, or like I wouldn't do. But like the thing, he took risk in his life in a way that's kind of what helped him innovate. But through that risk, it wasn't the way he was able to stand out from everybody else was not by doing what everyone else was doing, but was by being different, for his love of coding and computers and physics and science and everything. That's kind of what brought him to that position he's in now. It's not by just being normal or not being himself.
Yeah, I want to point out like you don't have to be quote unquote weird to be like
Definitely
make it
not.
big.
No.
But what we're trying to get at is being quote unquote weird. I feel like is just not really following the social norms.
I think
and being yourself.
Yeah, the best way to say it is just like just being true to yourself. It's just not like just doing it because that's who you are. It's
exactly.
not, you're not gonna say that stupid line or that stupid joke just because I don't want to make a weird like joke or whatever. No, it's just because genuinely inside that's the type of person you are. That's the type of thing you'd say, and like I guess that's like a better way to. It's not weird. Yeah.
Exactly, but I feel like it makes more sense because I feel like people will perceive those things as weird.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but I feel like all our genuine selves have its own like weird swing.
And that's what makes us unique.
No,
though.
it does. And
and those honestly are some of like the funniest moments I've encountered is when people are authentically themselves and they say something that's just so normal. It's so them. It's so authentic to them. That's just 100%
and
funny. And it's just a great laugh.
And what's really important about like having friends like that and stuff is also like being genuine yourself, like we've been talking about. But like if you're vulnerable with your friends, they actually like get to know you better and actually get to appreciate you for who you are. And I think that's like incredibly important, that your close friends, family, whatever, actually like have a strong understanding of who you are. Because at the end of the day, like those are the people you're going to go to when you need help, when something comes up, and only they are really going to be able to understand like how to deal with it and things like that. So it's very important to be vulnerable to your friends and to everyone around you.
And I think vulnerability too, you touched on a good point, but I think being vulnerable too is a great way to surround yourself with the people that you want to surround yourself, like genuine people who will care about you, genuine people who are interested in your well-being and whatnot. Reason being is because let's say you present your fake self, whatever that may be, that person isn't gonna help you when you're normal or quote unquote your genuine self your genuine self. So the best way to bring that type of those people into your lives is just by being vulnerable, being 100% yourself around the people, everybody you meet. Some people might not like you, and that I feel like that's all right. I mean, that's because there's how many people in this world always chasing after like one person's like approval. Definitely not worth it in my opinion. So I think it's important to be yourself in every situation, or at least be as true to yourself as you can be, in order to surround yourself with like those types of people who will hopefully become good friends or accept you.
Yeah, and then I guess one more reason, if you don't have enough, to surround yourself by the right people, is definitely the fact that like the 5 closest people to you, kind of like the average of that, kind of add up to who you are to an extent. Because like the people you surround yourself with are the people that motivate you, the people that give you drive, the people that like can ask you to go out and party, or go and help them like work on a project or whatever. The idea behind it is like your friends are like, or the 5 closest people to you, could be your family, are so involved in your life that they're going to rub off on you a lot. So you want to choose, I guess, the right people to be around so that you can form into the person you want to be.
Also, those people genuinely just want the best for you as well. And it's great surrounding yourself by those people as well. It just makes it's just a good feeling.
Well, yeah. And I feel like that only happens from being vulnerable. If you have like a really good friend, but like you don't act yourself when you're around that friend, how can they
just don't know you that
they
well.
Don't.
They don't know how to help you.
How are they able to have those deep moments with you if you don't even share who you really are to them?
Exactly. I 100% agree. And before we get to our 1%, we wanted to leave you off with a quote from Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. And here's the quote. "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we are genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are usually the ones who do." So yeah, we hope that quote is kind of like brain candy for you. I think it's such an amazing quote by Steve Jobs. It's honestly one of my favorite quotes to kind of like think about. And I think it goes perfectly with what we talked about in this podcast. But with that, do you want to get into our 1%?
Yeah, so for my 1%, I definitely want to try to be less judgmental. I'll explain like the steps I'm going to take to do that. But the reason being is because I feel like overall I'm not that judgmental, but like I've definitely had some recent experiences where like just some interesting things going on in Boulder, like with people walking by, like yelling music and like they're really seem really happy, but I feel like me judging them makes people want to be themselves less. Like it lowers their confidence, and that's just obviously not the type of environment that we want to create for other people. So I think for me, I just really need to work on being less judgmental. And I think if every time I think of a judgmental thought, I actually compliment the person that I am judging,
Yeah.
I think that'll be very helpful because one, it reverses the fact that I was being judgmental, but also helps me like get in this track of mind where like I actually appreciate other people for being who they are and being their true selves.
Yeah, I think for my 1%, I'm actually going to do something somewhat similar, but the route I'm going to take is going to be slightly different. For me, like I meet a lot of people at my job and other just networking as well. And oftentimes I think about if I know anything about them or if they gave me like any background, I usually judge them based on that background they gave me or something similar to that. So for me, I think I've done this in the past and I still try to do this every time, but it's always every time I meet someone new, just don't think about any, let's say like stereotypes or like anything like that, but just kind of genuinely think blank sheet. I don't know you. I don't know your past, but I want to know what makes you you. Who are you? Mm-hmm. And that's something we touched on in a past episode, but I actually want to bring that into like every interaction, every new interaction I create with somebody, genuinely just like blank sheet, like you said, and genuinely asking to discover those questions of what makes you you. And I think that helps kind of get that whole judgmental side out of the way and just kind of appreciate a person for who they are and for the experience that they have and being their genuine self, and hopefully they're able to be vulnerable enough to share that with me. So that's probably something I want to implement a lot more. But yeah, that's going to be my 1%. So there we go. We just explained our 1%, and we also encourage you, the viewer, to go ahead and create some 1% for yourselves. What are some goals that you've had recently? It doesn't have to do with what we discussed, but what are the steps that you're going to take in order to achieve that goal? What are the 1%? And with that, also, if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on our Instagram as well at dosomething.podcast in order to get all the latest information when our newest podcasts are releasing. And from there, that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah, I just want to leave it off with this one thing here. Don't forget to do something. Peace.